Is anybody there? Maybe not. Maybe they're all off celebrating Father's Day. I see a few people are trickling in. I also just checked. I noticed a bunch of people are starting Google Hangouts right this minute, so I have competition. So I guess I'm the big loser. It's okay. Well, hello. Somebody said something. I am patient. I'll sit quietly for a little while. I should warn you, we have some rumbling going on in the sky. We might get some thunderstorms in the middle of all of this. We'll see. It's been that kind of summer so far with lots of wetness, and it probably means in July we will be inundated with bugs. But that's Minnesota. Okay, we got 10 people listening in. Some of you might be hate watching. I don't know. Okay, well, I guess we'll just charge in there. Oh, hello, Fronomythic. I was going to talk about fathers first, but if you want to join in with some biology stuff later, I will invite you. Actually, maybe I should just go ahead and invite you now, just in case. Let's see. No, that's not it. Okay. So, how many of you are here because you are capitalistic puppets who believe in manufactured holidays like Father's Day? And how many of you are here because you'd rather do anything else besides celebrate a manufactured holiday like Father's Day? And how many of you are in between? Yeah, this is a weird one. Father's Day is such a strange holiday. It's not a real holiday. As all fathers know, every day is Father's Day, and you're supposed to properly genuflect before us every day. And this is just a way to concentrate all the love you should be getting into one brief period so they can ignore you the rest of the time. Isn't that the truth of it? Okay. Well, I'll just mention that I've said that what I'm doing this summer is I'm sitting around writing a book. And The book is, well, the working title is How It Got That Way, and it's about developmental biology. And one of the early chapters is about how I got this way, because I think it's important to be upfront about your biases and your where you come from and what kinds of things you think. And one of the things in that chapter is I talk a bit about my family, because families really are important in shaping who you are and what you become. So I've got a little bit about my father there, and I'm probably going to chop a lot of it out because I'm in the editing phase right now, and that's okay. So anyway, fathers. So I thought I'd just say a little bit about my father since it's Father's Day, and let me just see if I can get this all to work. Yeah, screen share. Show me. Show me. Where is it? Somewhere in here. Uh, it's disappeared. Let me find it. Oh, what do I do with it? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Yes, I'm fumbling around trying to figure out everything because, hey, I guess I'm just not technical enough. Come back. Where'd my screen share go? There we go. Show me this. There we go. Okay, I just thought I'd share a little bit about my father. So there he is. As you can see from the little scribbled caption at the bottom, this is a photograph from 1942. And who you see there is from left to right in the back. That's my Uncle Edward, my Aunt Florence, my aunt, she's the baby being held, my Aunt Corilda May, my Uncle Bill, and then down in front, that's my dad looking up at little Florence. And right next to him is his sister, my Aunt Sally. So this is a family group from 1942. And somewhere around this time, my father's father died. So my father grew up kind of in a single parent family. I have a lot of respect for my grandmother, who really struggled to raise these 6 kids and did a pretty good job of it, I think. And the sad and tragic thing about this kind of photos, when you look at it, all I know is every single one of those people is now dead except for my Aunt Sally. So, yeah, it's been a while. Anyway, so that's one bit of sadness. Let's see, here we go. But here's my father a few years later. This must have been about 1950 or thereabouts. And my father was very much a fisherman. He loved fishing, as you might guess from this photo. And it also leads into my pet theory, which is mine, which is that the purpose of ties, of neckties, is simply a proxy for the fact that you are incapable of catching 3 steelhead at once. So here he is posing with the original, the true necktie, which is obviously a fish, as everyone knows, just looking at them. So this is my father's thing. He was really into fishing, and he dragged me along for some of that as well. And this is a nice photo. This is me. I must be about 9 months old there because it's Christmas time. That's my father holding me, and that's my mother over there to the side. And it's kind of weird to look at this now because my mom and dad at this time, my mother was about 18, I think. That is much too young to have children. I should be wagging my finger and saying, no, you could have held off a few more years, except, of course, if she had, I wouldn't be here. So that's a good-looking family, isn't it? One thing I can tell you is, for some reason, I didn't get any of the attractiveness genes that were present in that family, but well. The vagaries of genetics, they're weird. Let's see. Yeah, and this is my mother and father a few years later. you will notice that they are still very attractive people. My mother looks exactly the same as she did when she was 18. She's grown only in dignity over the years. So there are some good genes lurking in my background, believe it or not. I know it doesn't show, but there's good stuff here. Uh, yeah, this was taken some years before my father died of heart disease. So we also have some bad genes lurking in my family. Okay, another one. Yeah, there's my father, and that's my sister. And once again, this is kind of morbid to me because both of them are dead now. Uh, my father died a while after this, and this must have been in the 1990s. And that's my baby sister, Lisa, who died tragically several years later, after my father died. Families are horrible to look back on. Anyway, and there's me. This is from 15 years ago. So yes, I don't know what happened. I guess that's what happens when you get old. Anyway, I have 3 kids. That's my oldest in the back with the red hair. That's Alaric. And then next to him is my middle son, Conlon. And my wife is on the left up front. And that is my daughter, Skatya. And her son, Midnight, the cat, and me. And that's the thing about families is they are always changing. And when I look back to the old family album, that's the weird thing about it is these people have all grown up and moved on. It's strange. This is what happens. And I think I can speak for most of the fathers out there that you can't win as a father. If your kids grow up bad, then it's all your fault. And if they all grow up good, like my kids did, who are all fine, upstanding, mature adults who are living their own lives and doing very well for themselves, if they do well for themselves, then you're just sitting there thinking, well, I was not a good enough father to these wonderful people. They don't deserve me. We need somebody better. So that's fatherhood to me, at least. Um, Something where it's always changing, it never stays the same, and you just face the prospect of everyone growing up and moving away or dying on you. Oh yeah, that's a depressing way to phrase it. Okay, let me bring up the comments. Yes, that was pre-beard me. I did not have a beard when I was 9 months old. I would have been much cuter if I had. You remember those cars? Okay. That means you must be in about my generation. Yeah. Okay, so what about you people? What do you want to say about fathers? How many of you, feel free, to ignore me because this is all private stuff. Uh, how many of you did not have good relationships with your fathers? Oh, at Eschaton. Yeah, okay, I remember that. How many of you have fond memories of your fathers? How many of you are fathers? Go ahead, speak up. You're all just stunned into silence because you didn't have a father who walked around holding fish in his mouth. Oh, somebody had a horrible relationship. Yeah. Oh. See, if we work at it, we could make this into a really depressing hangout. And just in case we do, I am prepared. So yeah, go ahead and let it all hang out. Um, that as I mentioned, it's kind of a complicated thing with fathers because if you have a good relationship with your father, he's turning into an old man, and like Phrenomethic's father, he might be in a home with Alzheimer's, or like my father, he might be dead. Everything ends in tragedy, and there's just not much you can do about it except struggle on through. I can at least say that one of my kids is now a father, and he gets to face all of those issues himself pretty soon. Yes, cancer. Oh, I hate cancer. Yes, once upon a time I was in a training program for cancer research, and one of the things NIH required me to do was um, sort of follow oncologists around and cancer surgeons and meet with cancer patients and see their treatments, and it was rough. It takes a special kind of person to be able to do that. I mean, I can understand um, some of the pluses of it, because as a cancer doctor, you actually can help these patients, and you can actually help them live longer lives, and that's great. But at the same time, you're dealing with people with great diseases that are going to shorten their lives. Yes, Phrenomythic, they are getting better and better at treating cancer. I know this. Um, uh, one of the great books to read is The Emperor of All Maladies by Mukherjee, which talks specifically about that. And you know, you read this thing, and it's you start off way back when, 19th century and earlier, and cancer was rarer then. Of course, the reason it was rarer because it was rarer for people to live to the advanced age where cancer became likely. And if you got it, it was just a screaming horror of a death. Yeah, no analgesics, no anesthetics, nothing. You're just in trouble, and you know you're going to die in great pain. And so, yes, it's definitely gotten much better. As he documents, at the same time that we're seeing increased incidence of cancer, which is because of longer survival rates, we're seeing much better treatment of the disease, and people living longer, surviving better. Uh, there's also good palliative care. So, if you look through the old literature, it's kind of horrifying when you see what breast cancer meant way back then. It meant you just had these gigantic ulcerous sores and your breast was rotting on your chest. And that doesn't happen anymore, at least not if you're doing things properly. Although I have been reading a bit. Oh, has anybody heard of black salve? Yeah, there's this stuff called black salve, which people are getting crazy about. Um, wacky people who don't know what they're doing. It's this gunk, and they claim that it's supposed to help you treat cancer. Yeah, black salve, and they slather this on. If you've got a lump, you've got a sore, you've got an ugly looking mole, you put this stuff on there, and it basically burns it through. And it's just, yeah, it's caustic, it's terrible. It doesn't treat the disease. It's just not worth it. Yeah, apricot pits, Laetrile, all that stuff. Back when I was courting my wife, we would go visit her aunt, and her aunt was a fanatic about this stuff, and it was just dreadful. She would give us these cookies as a treat that were just made of ground up peach pits or something, and no. Okay, there's a good poll question. What's worse, Alzheimer's or cancer? 100 years ago, I would have said cancer, because there was no treatment, and it was painful, a painful death. Nowadays, cancer has, we can't cure it, of course, but it's been tamed. If you're going to die of it, you will die in a little less pain nowadays. So I would personally say Alzheimer's worse. I can't imagine my brain just sort of drifting away. Oh yeah, everybody remembers Laetrile now. Oh man, in the 1970s, that was such a big thing. Everyone was talking about Laetrile. It was no good. It didn't do anything, of course, but people are going to Mexico for the treatments and so forth. Also in the 70s, the other thing people were really getting gung-ho about was DMSO. And I just can't believe that people thought this was a great treatment. DMSO is this, does anybody know what it is? DMSO is this solvent. It's a really good solvent. Just about it, lots of things will dissolve in it. And the other thing is that it's a useful carrier, because you can, if for instance you put some DMSO in your hand, whatever's dissolved in the DMSO will be transmitted through your skin into your bloodstream, and you will get it. I used to work with DMSO as a solvent in various fixatives and things like that. And one of the things we knew is you were sloppy if you were working with your DMSO and all of a sudden you got a taste of garlic in your mouth, because DMSO has kind of a garlicky taste. But yeah, if you smelled a little bit on your hand, suddenly you get this sensation. And I agree, it is a fantastically bad thing to get on your skin. It's really, in itself, it's not dangerous. It doesn't do any harm, apparently. But it's just that if anything's dissolved in it, that's also going to go directly into you. So no, you don't want to mess around with DMSO. And as I was saying, in the 70s, this was another of those big things. Everyone was thrilled about DMSO. DMSO massages. Oh, I can't believe people did this. But yeah, they would actually slather DMSO on them, on their backs, and rub it in. And I didn't understand it. And I mentioned my father earlier. He once asked me if I could score him some DMSO at the lab, and yeah, I could. We had liters of this stuff around, but no, I told him there's no way I was going to give it to him. Too dangerous. Oh, we got one of those loons along. Everyone will soon no longer a part of the fabrication of time and space. Whatever that means, I don't know. I don't care. Yeah, the good old days. The good old days weren't so good. It's a weird thing to be one of those horrible leftists who's complaining about the American situation right now, and it is objectively bad. But many things are better than they were in the 50s and 60s and 70s. It's like, there's this common argument people make that, oh yeah, sit down and shut up because X is better than what it was years ago. And let's just ignore Y, which has gotten worse. Mr. Dead in My Pocket loves fabricating time and space so much. Oh yeah, me too. There's a new show on the CBC showing life in the 40s and 50s. I hope it's accurate. There was a show here in the U.S. I'm sure everybody saw it or at least heard of it, and that was Mad Men. And I watched a little bit of that, and I could not stand it because, yeah, I remember those times, and I remember that kind of casual crap that everyone was carrying on with then. And it is not. That's not the part I want to remember. I have wonderful memories of my family growing up, I do not have wonderful memories of, you know, poor America on the wrong side of the tracks when I was growing up. Do any American cable packages in the US offer any Canadian channels? I don't know. Probably. I haven't watched TV in ages. TV has become impossible for me to watch anymore. A commercial every 10 minutes, 5 minutes worth of commercials every 10 minutes is just intolerable. It's kind of like the ads in my blog. I hate them. Yeah, I don't actually remember the 50s. I was born in 1957. So, yeah. Oh, and laugh tracks. Yes, death to the laugh track. Yeah, Netflix. I enjoyed the first season of Kimmy Schmidt. I couldn't get back into it for the second. I am younger than Diane Bruce. Okay, yes. There are people older than I am. A few of them. Fewer and fewer every year. Yeah, I no, I in some ways I find laugh tracks more objectionable because it's this weird psychological thing where they are trying to trick us into thinking things are funny when they aren't necessarily. Uh, Another show I tried watching was Big Bang Theory, which is thick with the laugh tracks, and there was nothing funny in it. It was just the worst show. I can't believe that thing is so popular. So, besides wasting your time on YouTube, what are you guys doing for Father's Day? Have you called your father? This is this thing that us old people are supposed to remind you. You better call the old man. Yeah, Mad Men was just so annoying. There were no heroes in that show. There was nobody to admire, nobody to respect. Yeah, the other trick I do is when I do watch any old shows on YouTube or Netflix, I just turn on the captioning and turn off the soundtrack. What did my dad do? My dad did many things. My dad worked very, very hard. This is also one of those things that shapes my attitudes about life and the economy and all that sort of thing. Is I grew up in a fairly poor family, and my father had to work so darn hard. It was terrifying that he'd have to work two or sometimes three jobs to make ends meet. Kinds of things he did. Uh, when I was born, he was a lumberjack who was working up in the Cascades. Then he was working on the railroad for a while. Um, then he got smart and he got a job in a gas station. And you think about this: a job in a gas station is a big step up from those hard manual labor jobs. Yeah, did he come home late for dinner all the time? Or if he did get home in time, you could tell he was just so exhausted he didn't want to do much. Yeah, and then he worked as a gas station attendant for a number of years, and then he got on the Boeing gravy train, which is not such a good gravy train. Um, any of you Seattle people know about this from that time? That what would? Oh my! There is a bird. pounding at the window, and my cat's getting very excited about this. Anyway, Boeing was in some ways terrible because it was the best job you could get. It had great benefits, and what they would do is they would hire people when there was a surge of business, and then they would fire them when the business slacked off. So it was very inconsistent. So my father spent a number of years alternating between working for Boeing as a diesel mechanic and then getting laid off and then doing other jobs. He was a custodian for a while. He was a water meter reader for a while, which was actually a good job for my father because my father was the most gregarious person I've ever known. He would talk to anybody about anything. So he seems to have met everybody in town when he was a water meter reader, and in some ways it was kind of creepy because when I brought my girlfriend, who would later become my wife, home, my dad actually knew her parents fairly well. Oh, a refrigeration mechanic. That's what my father had. That was my father's aspiration for me. He had it all lined up for me. He had found an apprenticeship in refrigerator repair for me. And, I much as I appreciated it, I ended up going to college instead, which kind of baffled everyone in the family. I think I was the only one in the family who has anyone else in the family gone to college? Not exactly. They've been in training programs and things though. So I wouldn't, I would not say that my family is uneducated, but they were more of a, applied sort of education, which is a good thing. I am not one of those elitists who thinks you have to go to a liberal arts college. There are some great places, great kinds of jobs that you can get with, go learn a trade, learn welding, learn manufacturing jobs. Those are all good things. Yeah, nothing wrong with applied education. And for many people, it's much better for them than the kind of abstract academic stuff that they would get from my kind of university. And again, the tricky thing is I'm not trying to be elitist. I'm not saying that they're not smart enough to do this stuff. Of course they are, but they're maybe not as interested, and they could have a much better life if they do these other things. Because I can tell you that college professors do not get rich. I have a brother who works for Boeing, and in a lot of ways, I kind of envied him that, oh, they have vacations, paid vacations. What are those? Yes, nothing wrong with being educated and working in trade. Yeah, I'm all for it. So did anyone show up here looking for a discussion of abortion? Sorry if I failed to go through with that, but I have a real problem with these people who can't get the perspective of the people most concerned with this issue and go ahead and talk about it. I mean, I've written about my position on this sort of thing, but no, if you're getting into a public discussion, you have a responsibility to find, other people who who have a position on this. So who debated a local who was against abortion and an atheist? Yeah, I was at an atheist conference once, and there was a small group there who were pro life, they call themselves. Not that they actually are. And it was a very odd experience. Was it Matt Dillahunty who debated them? I think it was Matt who ripped into them. But they were kind of terrible. And when you started talking to them, you started really realizing that, yeah, they're not very atheist. Oh, Christine. Yeah, that was her first name. Christine something or other. Pro-life, but in favor of the death penalty. Yeah, that's another one of those hypocrisies you see so often. And happy Father's Day to you, Jason Sladden. People use the force of the state to deny women access to abortion, but do not use the force of the state to force parents to adopt. Yeah, well, yeah, but then I that's kind of a false dilemma because I would not want to force anyone to adopt a child. Children are a pain in the butt. Really, they're a lot of work, and you're not going to be the best parent unless you're doing it voluntarily. Yeah, I am all in favor of choice all around. That people should make a choice to be a parent or not be a parent, and forcing people to be parents is just as bad as taking children away from parents. What is my drink of choice today? I'm just having Diet Coke. I've got some whiskey on hand just in case. Because you never know what will happen with these discussions. But Friend of Mythic says abortion is essential for the empowerment of women, which is for the good of society as a whole. I agree completely. You know, it's there. One problem with the formulation you just made is it sounds like, oh yeah, let's give everybody abortions, hooray! No, let's give everybody the choice to have an abortion or to have a child. I think that's the best idea. And yeah, give women the opportunity to do the right thing. Yeah, and it's surprising that we do not recognize that we don't realize that, yeah, having a child is such a huge responsibility that we should not be insisting that someone who has zero interest in parenting should have a child. It's just all backwards. That doesn't work. Okay, and countries that have abortion rights do not contribute to the overpopulation problem generally. Yeah, you know, we're starting to see these noises made by people that there isn't an overpopulation problem, that you know that many countries are starting to drop below the replacement rate. I have a different perspective on that. Yeah, you could make an argument that we could increase the carrying capacity of the planet to accommodate even more people than we have now. But I don't think that's good for the planet. And I don't think it's good for all those other living things besides human beings that are out there. Let me play devil's advocate here. Okay. I want to get paid as much as Keanu Reeves did to play that part. Oh, there was a movie where he was a lawyer hired by Satan, wasn't there? Yes, the planet has an upper physical limit, but it's not a hard limit, right? And that's the catch because sure, there's an absolute limit up here, and if you reach that, the entire everything collapses and you die. But that doesn't mean that falling just short of the limit means you've got a good life, because things get dicey the closer to the limit you get. And And that's what I see with a lot of people who argue that we don't have to worry about the population explosion because we're starting to go down, and we should start worrying about having more children. Um, no, I don't think so. Oh, hey, front of mythic, are you actually Elon Musk saying we could also move the population to Mars? Yes, if you are Elon Musk, could you give me $1 million? I just could really use it. If humanity ends up standing 3 deep, I want to end up on the top layer. Oh, that's the libertarian position. Yeah, that's the hard capitalist position. So what if we've got people packed up full? It's as long as you're in the top layer, you're okay. I can think of a lot of people I wouldn't mind seeing live on another planet. I agree. I would love to see Elon Musk succeed and move to Mars. You're worried about the effects of people living on Mars. Why? I think, well, I mean, in a real abstract, in a real concrete sense, actually, I would worry about them because there's going to be more radiation, more UV radiation. There's going to be more difficulty in just surviving. I don't know if human beings can thrive in a place with, what is it, 1/3 the gravity of Earth. As an older person, I'm very aware of the fact that circulatory systems are fragile and undergo all kinds of changes in your life. And I don't think Mars would have such a great effect on you. Oh, what impact would technology such as artificial gestation have on the abortion debate? Oh, well, I think it would add a whole new dimension of problems to the abortion debate. One of the things that would happen is, immediately that those pro-lifers would declare that there is no point to abortion. We should just ban abortion. If you don't want your child, we'll just put it in an incubator. We'll just remove it from your uterus and put it in this nice little incubator. But it ignores the whole problem of what are you going to do with this baby once it hatches out? It's a way to defer the problem for 9 months. Yes, Mars is not good for people biology. Ah, yeah. We don't seem to appreciate enough how much our environment impinges on our development and our life altogether. People who go into orbit, and there's an extreme condition. You're living weightlessly. Yes, the physicists will tell me you're not really weightless, but well, anyway, you're living without the kinds of effects of gravity, and it does terrible things to your physiology. Oh, The Expanse. Yeah, I've seen The Expanse. It kind of minimizes the deleterious effects, though, because there are lots of people who are thriving and are healthy. Uh, they have the Martians come down to Earth for a visit, and they don't seem to be that. Yes, you can tell, oh, we're acting like, oh, this is a terrible burden. We're struggling here. But I think it'd be far more severe if you were actually a Mars native brought to Earth. Would I want to go into space? That's I no, not really. I mean, there's a sense in which I would love to be able to partake in that kind of adventure, but there's another in which I see huge resources being thrown into putting people in space that aren't really productive and are harming the planet. The space program is great. I think putting probes into space, sending robots up there. I'm all for science and exploration, but so much of the humans in space nonsense is just PR and grandstanding. Oh, Cryptike, hi there. Wondering if you want to say anything about tenure and the apparent reluctance of administrations to get rid of abusive faculty members. Oh, yes, I have strong feelings about that. Yeah, it's I'm a tenured professor. I know about the rules, and I know that I have not been given carte blanche to do whatever I want. That I have a whole set of responsibilities. It's also because when you become a tenured professor, you are brought into this kind of integrated network of all the other faculty members, your colleagues, and you are part of a team now at the university. And your job is focused on, the teaching university like mine is focused on taking these young people coming in and being responsible and effective and getting them up through the program and graduating reasonably and learning something. Uh, and in those cases, treating the students as sex objects is not part of the game. That's not what we want to do. That's a terrible idea. And there have been all these cases recently. Yesterday, it just seemed like yesterday I just got all this stuff from all these people about all these different cases of terrible situations where people are in tenure and they're abusing their rights. The University of Rochester, the what was it, the psychology and brain science division there it just sounds like it's an upheaval because they treated it as party time. And I just can't imagine doing that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've had situations like this here. Just before I came to Morris, for instance, there was apparently a professor, and I think he was in physics, and he basically decided to slack off. That he was not fulfilling his duties. He was doing a poor job of teaching. He was basically just goofing off all the time. And as I mentioned in one post I put up yesterday, that we have ways to route around the damage, and that happens very often. So in that case, you could see, well, we're just going to move him off to the side. We'll have him teach this little, non-critical elective course. If he blows it off, he's not done any serious harm. And we'll just apply a little bit of social pressure to try to get them to retire and, move off. The university also does things like, offer packages to faculty to get early retirement, for instance. So there are ways to do it. It's just, it's a tricky thing because tenure is supposed to allow us to explore new ideas without fear of retribution and loss of our job. And there are always going to be people who push the limits, and they make it look bad for the rest of us. But you can't just unilaterally say, oh, bye. Forget tenure. You've lost it because you were a bad boy. And goodbye. It takes quite a bit of effort to get a tenured professor kicked out. And I think that's one of the things that's happening at Rochester is you get this one terrible faculty member who's poisoning the entire environment and he's driving people away. But the university is bound by all these laws. Darn laws, rules, regulations, contracts, all that kind of stuff. And it means they can't just snap their fingers and make him go away. and that always happens. Okay, ContraPoints did a decent takedown of Jordan Peterson. Yeah, she does. She's really good at what she does. I mean, I don't agree 100% with everything she says, but the thing is, um, she's got style in what she does. I don't. Just that's just who we are. Uh, and that means she's very good at the theatrical side of YouTube as well as the intellectual side, and that's kind of a double whammy that's really effective. And you don't agree with everything I say. Oh, let's see, block, where's the block button? No, that's okay. Yeah, nobody agrees with everything I say. That's that's the state of the universe. That's perfectly okay. We're all different. Yeah, she's also criticized previous opinions of hers, which I appreciate. Yeah, that we ought to be able to grow and change. That, I've changed over the years. Oh, yeah, you were taking all the photos at Escata. Okay, right. Yes, is it rare for people? Well, it's not rare for people to change. I think people change all the time, but people become very much attached to an image of themselves as an individual. And you know what we've got right now, for instance, is a large number of people on YouTube whose identity is tightly wrapped up in constant snark and also in a kind of repulsive, I'll use the words identity politics, but it's their kind of identity. And so for them to change would require a really radical departure from everything that they had done before. That, in addition, because of the mechanics of YouTube, they built up this audience of people who are um, praising that identity. So you're not going to be able to change it. It's really hard. It's one reason I'm glad I don't have much of a following. And if I did, I tend to drive them away pretty quickly because I'm a jerk that way. Identity is very important in human psychology. I agree. I am who I am. You are who you are. So Cryptike is shocked that there are people whose identities are wrapped up in snark. I can't think of any offhand. No, I just can't imagine who that would be. But yeah, there's and this, going back to ContraPoints, that um, part of the reason for the utility of identity is presenting a persona that's nicely packaged, that can be recognized by a large number of people. And I think ContraPoints is really good at putting up that identity. But it's at the same time, I think part of her identity is a kind of fluidity that's kind of nice. There is no one I'd rather be but me, says Mr. Hassel. Okay, yeah, be you. I've always said that to everybody. Just be yourself. I mean, sometimes being yourself means being a world-class asshole, in which case I don't want to be associated with you. I'll assume that's not the case for you. Um, but I would rather people were open about precisely who they are than that they're sneaky and hide it and pop it out when I least expect it. Yep, goo 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 joob. Uh-oh, Mr. Hassel says he's a nice guy. You know, that's a first sure sign that you're not a nice guy. Never say you're a nice guy. I never say it, but then it's easy for me because I'm not. So what else do you want to talk about? We've been going almost an hour. I think somewhere around the hour mark would be a good place to stop. Are you a nice guy? TM. Yes. Trademark nice guy. With a nice trilby and all this other stuff, right? Oh, I see Diane Bruce mentioned. Really, the best way is to discuss it over a beer. Yeah, there's a real virtue in informal situations that and face-to-face situations. Yes, Diane, say hello to Shauna and Steve. Can you recommend any podcasts? Oh, let's see. What have I been listening to lately? Um, let's see. I don't have many opportunities to listen to podcasts because I don't commute. I that's one of the things I miss about not commuting. But the one thing I do is I do walk to the gym every other day and I work out for a little while. And when I'm there, what I listen to is, let's see, I've been listening to Thomas Smith. So his Serious Inquiries Only podcast, I think his Philosophers in Space podcast is also fun, but they don't talk much about biology, at least not yet. Maybe they will. So just anything with Thomas Smith, and it's pretty good. Um, oh, Peter Sagal's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is fun. Yeah, I'm marking myself as an old NPR nerd, I know. The Great Debate Community. Do they have podcasts? Do they have these pre-recorded things? You can just download the audio? Because I haven't seen that. Also, I've been kind of backing away from the Great Debate Community for a couple of reasons. You know, they're fine. They're fine what they do. That's good stuff. But I simply cannot stand a video that lasts for 3 hours. It'd be nice if they put a limit on these things and stop them at a certain point. The other thing is lately they've been bringing on Richard Carrier, and no, I am not going to associate myself with anything to do with a guy who's trying to sue me for $1 million because we investigated accusations against him. Wait, wait, don't tell him he's on now? I don't know. I always listen to it at my convenience. But okay. Yeah, somebody got Carl Castle's voice on their answering machine. That's not I don't have a voice on my answering machine. I got one of those boring answering machines. If you call it, it just says leave your name at the beep, and then it just gets to the beep. Hello, Lito. Yeah. Let's see. Other podcasts. Oh, well, Science Friday. Everybody listens to Science Friday, right? I think you're required, at least if you're a science nerd. Oh, and Radio Lab. Yeah, there's lots of things I will tune in. Any science fiction fantasy you've read lately you would recommend? Oh, what have I been reading? There was something. What was there? The thing is, I kind of chew through science fiction and fantasy at a phenomenal rate. So sometimes I chew through it a little too fast, and it just goes through and right out the other ear. Let's see, what offhand, I can't remember. A lot of my reading time lately has been soaked up with, I'm reading Carl Zimmer's book, She Has Her Mother's Laugh. I'm more than halfway through. It's pretty good. And also because I'm writing this book, I'm doing some research. So what was I reading? Wagner's book. Wagner's a guy who does some really interesting developmental biology, development and evolution, and he's got a thick, rather dense book on what was the title? It's got one of those titles that's easy to forget, something like embryos, homology, and evolution, or something. So that's what I've been reading a lot of lately. Oh. Yes, I got a little alert that Kevin Logan is doing some stuff with Tommy Robinson. Oh, yeah, that's why it's quiet here. Is you're all off listening to other things, which is okay. How is the lawsuit going? I don't know. One of the things about the law is you just throw all this stuff into a hopper, and then there are lawyers and judges who grind through it, and then at the other end something comes out, and who knows how it will go. Right now we're at this phase where all the debate is not about the facts of the case, which I think we win on even more strongly if we ever get to them, and I hope we don't. What we're discussing is venue. So all the lawyers are doing right now is fighting over whether we should have the venue. And thank you, seriously. Anyway, we're just fighting over whether it's appropriate to have this lawsuit in Ohio, which is apparently Richard Carrier moved to Ohio just about the time he got all this news from Skepticon and everything and started this lawsuit. And somehow we're supposed to know precisely when he left California to go to Ohio. And yeah, the sentiment is that he mainly moved to Ohio because it doesn't have a slap statute, so an anti-slap statute. So there's not much we can do there. If lawsuits are evil, what would you prefer? Dueling? No, the law is the appropriate way to deal with this stuff. But my objection is that there are so many layers and it's become so dense that, we've been dealing with this since when? Well, was it August of the year before? It's just been going on forever. What am I being sued for? Let's see. We used to have a guy named Richard Carrier on our network, and it was an interesting situation because he does some interesting biblical scholar. He's got a PhD in classical history or something. Anyway, he was doing some interesting work there, but he was also doing all this other stuff where he would, he'd go off to give a talk and he'd advertise basically ahead of time for partners to have sex with him while he was there. Okay, we're kind of open and we say, yeah, if you've got a blog here, you can do whatever you want. But then what happened is apparently he went a little too far, and some people complained that he was pressuring them for sex and things like this. I don't know all the details because what happened is the conference Skepticon announced that he was no longer welcome there. That's a sign of trouble right there. And then we announced, we have to investigate this. we're suspending his posting privileges until we, and we actually set aside a committee to actually look into the accusations. And boom, he sued us. Yeah, so, and that meant thousands of dollars wasted trying to fight off this guy. Jeff Copen asks, when will we get another book from you? I will get it done this year. That's my plan. Yeah, he's suing us for defamation. It's really weird because he says we've cost him all this money, and that he's been complaining about all of his lecture opportunities drying up and all this sort of thing. And yet, for some reason, he keeps also simultaneously talking about all the talks he's doing all over the country. Of course, he's stuck with giving talks at places like MythCon. So I suppose you could argue that he's kind of closed the door on a lot of stuff. But yes, do I hope we win? I hope we win too. He's suing us for $1 million, a bunch of people for $1 million. As I said, we're right now in this stage where we're just maneuvering over venue. And I expect that if they decide, no, it was inappropriate to file this lawsuit in a state where none of the defendants live and none of the defendants knew you were moving to this state, then I think it will just disappear. Yeah. Because then his choice is he'd have to file a whole bunch of independent lawsuits all over the place in states like California, which has strong anti-SLAPP statutes. And he probably doesn't want to risk it. The name of the person is suing, oh yeah, it's Richard Carrier. Okay, so we've got a little bit over an hour here. I think this is a good place to, I started with all this depressing stuff about family dying off and all this stuff and my children abandoning me, going off to live their own lives, good stuff like that. And then we end on this lawsuit. Yeah, next time, let's talk about something more cheerful. Nice hat. What hat? There is no hat. Every time I do these, people are talking about hats, but there aren't any. Okay, so why don't we wrap it up there, and I will plan on doing this again next weekend. I'll try to have a more concrete sort of topic to discuss. Oh, few last questions. Favorite cephalopod? Oh, I love them all. How can I? It's like saying which one is my favorite child. It's not going to happen. And what media have I been consuming lately? Well, I mentioned the books I've been reading. I've been neck deep in books. I've watched a few episodes of Babylon 5 just to remind me of what it was like way back when. Okay, how about talking about the activist students you're proud of next time? Oh, activist students. There's a problem with talking about students because they haven't given me permission to talk about them. And I don't want to bring in names. That would be awkward. But yeah, I have had a lot of students here who are very active in things like LGBT issues, like liberal politics, students who have gone on to careers where they're actually doing great things, like in medicine or whatever, and but also in politics. And they are righteous people, and I'm quite happy to have done that. How about inviting interested students to volunteer themselves to be your guest? That would be cool. Of course, right now I don't have students. This is summertime, and I'm on sabbatical. So maybe sometime in the future I could do that. But Yeah. Cuttlefish is a darn good poet. Yes, he is. He's he's one of those people, he doesn't get a lot of traffic, which is a shame. But, what he does is such quality stuff and so interesting and insightful and different and creative. Um, yeah, I think what he's got to do is he's got to join the alt-right and start writing racist poetry, and then he'll get a gigantic audience that will throw money at him. But no, that's not the kind of person he is. So, not going to happen. Yeah. Yeah, lots of underappreciated people. We got all these people on free thought blogs, and I get to see traffic stats and things like that, and I can tell you that none of them except me get the traffic they deserve, and I get more than I deserve. And I just wish there were a better way to just spread it out. I really am going to have to hire somebody to do a redesign on the site and do something. Who is this? Digital Cuttlefish. Yes, Digital Cuttlefish. He's a blogger on the Free Thought Blogs network. Everybody should know about the Free Thought. Just go to freethoughtblogs.com and browse around. There's a lot of good people. Cryptike is there, right? Yeah. Chambered Nautilus is best. Oh, I don't know. All of them have their strengths and virtues. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up here. Again, I'll probably do this next week, maybe about the same time. And I will try to come up with some topic. Maybe we'll bring in some more biology next week. Might be a good strategy is if I start alternating biology with random stuff. Oh, and Cryptike, I will mention this, is going to have a post on the right-wing riots in Kiev later today. Okay. Wait a minute, right-wingers never riot? That's only the lefties. Okay, talk to you later. Next week. I'll see you next week. Otherwise, you can just catch me on the blog. Have fun. Talk to you later.